NBT World, a vision of Thailand.
Because of the climate change, global warming thing, so the next step that scientists like me would like to do and now doing is that we don't want just only increase the number or propagate more of the baby coral, but we want to make sure that our baby coral that we produce can withstand to the environmental change, like the increase of the temperatures.
สวัสดีครับ I'm Michael New, and this is Thailand Today. When I was 7 years old, I used to want to become a marine biologist when I grew up. Now, obviously I changed my mind since then, but my love for the ocean has not changed. So it was one of my life's great joys to be able to scuba dive and dive all over Thailand for the last 2 decades. However, it was also a bit of a bittersweet experience because it let me come face to face with the fact that coral all over the world is dying because of climate change. But maybe there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Today, I'm at Chulalongkorn University to talk to a professor who has been developing a new type of coral that is resistant to heat. Let's go check it out. Today, we're joined by Ajahn Apple from the Department of Marine Science here at Chulalongkorn University. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do here?
Well, right now actually I'm teaching, working at the Department of Marine Science, Faculty of Science, Chulalongkorn University, and I'm also a Deputy Director of the Aquatic Resources Research Institute at the Chulalongkorn University also.
Now I know that you do a lot of scuba diving for your work. What are some of the most interesting places that you've visited?
Well, many places. I love to scuba diving, in coral ecosystems, and not just only that, because I did my PhD in the Gulf of Maine in the US. So I love scuba diving and kill beds. And also, diving in Antarctica, Arctic.
Diving in Antarctica. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, it's very exciting, and also because I always interested in polar ecosystems, how it changed, particular due to the climate change, all those things. So that's why diving is one of the things that we can be able to see a big picture on what's going on under the water there.
Yeah, I mean, with my own experience diving, I think it was sort of the closest I've ever felt to almost being on like an alien planet because the animals work differently and the plants or the coral works totally differently to what you're used to on land. And I guess in the Arctic, it takes it to that next level.
Yeah, right. For example, like usually you see the fish swimming, right?
Yeah.
But in polar regions, the fish, they not swim because they want to, conserve their energy because it's too cold. The water temperature is 0 centigrade.
0 centigrade.
So what happened is that actually when I dove there, I could easily, catch the fish by hand.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because they not swim.
When you're diving, and I apologize for all of the sort of technical questions here, what kind of suit are you wearing? Is it like a dry suit? Do you have like a full helmet on?
Dry suit, but not full helmet.
Oh, so it's pretty cold on your face.
Yeah, right. So once we jump into the water, you could, see that, get numbed. And because of 0 centigrade, right, the water temperature.
How long can you stay down at a time then?
Usually, for safety reasons, 20 minutes is probably maximum. Or else, if we stay longer, the hand, the feet will get numb, and it's not good for our bodies.
Now, your own research is into. Is it developing coral which is heat resistant?
Right, correct.
How did you get into this?
Well, actually, I have always had deep connections with the ocean since I was young. And as a scientist, I learned that doing marine ecosystem or coral reef ecosystem is not just only conservation, but also is involved in a sustainable of a livelihood, food securities, and also to make sure that our Earth secure for the future too.
Yeah. May I ask how successful these experiments have been, and also what specifically are you doing with the coral?
Well, for these projects, actually, we have been working since 15 years ago, and so far so good, I think. So what we do is that we collect egg and sperm of the corals when they're spawning at night, and then after that we do artificial fertilizations in the hatchery, and we have big hatchery at Samasan. Chonburi province. And after we do a artificial fertilization, then we raise these juvenile coral for 2 years in the hatchery before we release them back into the ocean. That's how the process goes.
How hard is it to grow coral in sort of a lab setting?
I would not say lab setting, it's a hatchery because the lab is small, right?
Okay, so it's in the ocean, but you've got it
it's
fenced off?
On the islands, but we built the hatchery, the big one. Okay, so we can be able to culture at least 4,000 or 5,000 baby coral each year. But if you do a lab, in a lab, it's probably maybe 100. But this hatchery, big hatchery. And so it's kind of intensive work, but the result is quite successful.
In my own experience diving, it's been, quite concerning how fast coral all over has just been bleaching and dying. So when I first heard about your research, I was actually genuinely very impressed and excited that we could potentially, save a lot of the coral this way. I guess that's sort of like the end goal, is to create coral that's heat resistant so that you can propagate on its own.
So actually, when we back about maybe 10, 20 years ago, when we're talking about coral restoration, usually we will focus just only the number of the coral that we can propagate or generate and back into the oceans. But because of the climate change, global warming thing, so the next step that scientists like me would like to do and now doing is that we don't want just only increase the number of propagates, more of the baby coral, but we want to make sure that our baby coral that we produce can withstand to the environmental change, like the increase of the temperatures.
What's that process like? Is it sort of, like if you're breeding animals or you're developing new types of fruit, are you just picking like the best of each and then?
Well, for this technique, actually, we didn't intend to, but it's just because of our hatchery. I always tell that our coral hatchery at the Samasan is like a 1-star hotel. It's not 5-star, it's 1-star hotel. So what happened is that because of we have a very low budget, so we could not really control the temperatures in the hatchery. And for the water flow, because the islands don't have the 24-hour electricity, so it means that the coral can get water circulate just only 8 hours, and then that's it. And actually, because of this process, because of we have a lower budget, and we didn't realize that this is good, because the baby coral have to stay there for 2 years before they could get big enough, and I can be able to release them back. And during these 2 years, it turned out to be quite good in terms of make them resilient to the risings of the water temperatures.
So sort of a happy accident of
Yeah.
trial by fire.
Yeah, right. I always say that, for example, if you have a baby, right, and if you want to, raise the baby, if you try to, take care the baby
Yeah.
very well, then when the baby grow up, they could not really go and, fighting with other, right? But if you
have to
try to
experience some
raise,
hardship.
raise, the children, since they're very young, to be very tough guy, then when they grow up, they can be able to, do anything.
So you've inadvertently created these really resilient coral. Is it many different types or just one type?
Actually, in the past 15 years, we can be able to culture more than 10 coral species.
Oh, okay.
But what happens recently is that because of this, climate change, global warming, that make coral spawning not very good. So in order to get, the good decent amount of the sperm and egg, we require some certain number. But in the past couple of years, they could not really spawn as much as it should be.
How often do corals release egg and sperm into the water, and how fast can they propagate under ideal conditions?
Well, very good question. Usually, majority of the corals in Thailand, they spawn once a year, just only once. But for Samasans area, it could spawn between January to February or March. Okay, so during these 3 months, we have to go diving every night, just to see whether if what night that they spawned. And in terms of the survival rate, if you not do anything, let them fertilize naturally, the survival rate would be lower than 0.001%.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. But what we are doing now actually is increase their survival rate up to 50%.
Wow.
Some people say that 50% is still low. I said that, well, not
No,
really
that's-
low compared to
the alternative. That's really
yeah,
high.
right.
How do you are you doing some of that by hand? How does that work?
In terms of collecting egg and sperm.
Yeah, and
yeah, actually, we make a special net. Okay, so before they're gonna spawn, we will use the net to cover each coral
so you catch
colony.
It and you sort of cover the
Right,
coral.
right.
That's
Some
cool.
people say that
Yeah.
okay, we could make them spawn and floating on in the water column and then collect it. It's not good way because we want to make sure and we want to know exactly where those egg and sperm come from, which colonies.
How far are you away from being able to put some of these little corals in various reefs and let them?
Well, right now we put almost about 10,000 coral
wow.
colonies already in
Yeah.
the oceans. And what happened is that now I become a grandma. So what happened is that baby coral now they go up
coral
to
grandma.
yeah,
Okay.
right, in a mature stage, and they can be able to release egg and sperm again.
Okay.
So last season actually what we did, because we try to collect egg and sperm from the coral in a natural area.
Welcome to Thailand, a premier destination where business seamlessly intertwines with world-class leisure. With direct flights from major cities worldwide, your next corporate event is just a step away. Host your conferences in Bangkok's cutting-edge venues, offering unparalleled facilities and services. Reward your team with relaxation on Phuket's world-renowned beaches, providing the perfect backdrop for rejuvenation. And don't forget to visit Chiang Mai, ranked among the top 5 mountain destinations in Asia, where majestic peaks and a rich cultural heritage await to captivate every traveler. This season, elevate your business journey. Choose Thailand, where every season is the perfect season for MICE.
All right, let's touch a little bit on the adventurous side of your work. Scuba diving, you must have run into some really interesting animals and and some unique challenges. Can you walk us through some of those?
Unique animals.
Sure,
Okay,
yeah.
Shark.
Sharks, yeah?
Yeah.
Whale sharks?
Well, unfortunately,
Really?
I never seen the real shark. I've been diving for
'Cause I
more
think-
than 5,000, 6,000 dives.
6,000 dives?
I never saw the one that really,
Yeah.
but sharks, I encountered with many sharks. One time I went to the Shark Islands, and very interesting. A lot of shark. It's quite scary, but
Usually in Thailand, it's mostly white tip and black tip, right?
Yeah.
Are there some bigger ones as well?
Well, black tip most, but the islands that I mentioned is in that time I was at Micronesia.
Oh, okay. So there might be some bigger ones there.
Yeah, bigger one. But they say that it's not dangerous, so it's not dangerous. I still survive. So.
Apart from global warming and climate change, what are some other dangers to coral?
Well, not just only global warmings, like, but pollutants. The pollutant from the runoff, that is also a major issue. Not just only that, overfishings. People sometimes, overlook overfishings, but a lot of times what happened is that we saw illegal overfishings, bombing, dynamite, those kind of things can kill the corals. And last but not least is tourism activities. Tourists can make a lot of money, but we cannot deny that. That activities a lot of time, end up killing or breaking, the coral too.
I mean, to touch on that, recently, in the last few years, there's been just complete shutdown of certain beaches
Yep.
to give some time for the coral to revitalize. How useful do you think that step is
I
from
think
the Thai government?
I think it's very useful because a lot of time, when we open one area to the tourists, sometimes it's just too many.
yeah.
Too many. Actually, right now they try to do a carrying capacity, right? But when tourists come, money increase, like sometimes we kind of
it's difficult.
more, but then eventually it can kill coral. So it's good to once in a while, close
Yeah.
that area.
How long do you think it takes typically for coral and wildlife to come back to a certain extent?
Very good question. It depends on the area. For example, in the Andaman Sea, it can take maybe a year. You can take, you can close it for one season, and then it can grow back. But for the Gulf of Thailand, unfortunately, I have been, diving for 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Some area, even though you close for 1 year or 5 years, it's still not recovery. Because in Gulf of Thailand, it's not just only tourist activities,
Yeah.
but other pollutants.
The large boats and
Yes,
stuff too,
right.
yeah.
And several factors that involve. And that's why 1 year probably is not enough for them to recover.
For the people watching who want to do their part to help protect coral, what can they do?
Well, many things. They can do both direct way or indirect way. Direct way, for example, I know that during the summer people go to the ocean, right? Snorkeling, diving, those things. This is very good. But one thing that they have to keep in mind that they should just only look. Take a picture, it's enough. Don't touch them because just only one touch can kill the coral. And then we also emphasize on environmental friendly activities.
Yeah.
If you use the boat, or use any other facility, make sure that they also environmental friendly. So this is the direct way. Indirect way is that right now there's a lot of activities going on, like coral restorations or conservations of the certain marine organisms. And if you don't have time to join them, you can just help them indirect, donate the money or donate some certain thing that they need. So yeah, several ways that they can be able to do.
How much of your time is split between teaching at the university and doing your research?
Well, actually, as a professor at the university, they expect us to not just only teach, but doing a research at the same time. So it's about 50% teaching, 50% research. And I find out that, doing a research at the same time, while we are teaching is very good. I will tell my students that, the thing that I teach you today, if you Google and ask, those kind of questions, the Google gonna not be able to answer you, because the thing that I teach the student today is the new thing, new information that we found from our research.
Yeah, is you're at the cutting edge of the field, I guess. Yeah. In terms of future plans for your research and just coral in general,
Yeah,
what can you say
even
about
though
that?
we succeed in coral restoration, try to make what we call super corals. But the next thing that we try to do is that, as I mentioned to you earlier, because of this environmental change, now we start to see that when corals spawn, they spawn in terms of number of the egg and sperm that they release is not as much as before. So the next step that we try to do is we do cryopreservation. So preserve the sperm and egg of the corals.
I see.
Now we can succeed in preserve the sperm, cryopreservations. And next step, what we try to do is the eggs. So if we can be able to do both, then in the future,
you can take your time and actually.
Yeah, in the future, if the coral could not really, release egg and sperm, then we can have egg and sperm bank of the coral.
Now coral being very heat sensitive in general, the fact that it's releasing less, do you think that's a matter of temperature? Like if the temperature was slightly cooler, then they might release more?
Usually if the temperature cooler, then they would release more. But what happened right now, because the temperature is higher than normal.
Yeah. So it's just each year it gets a little warmer and they don't
right.
release
And the other
as
thing
much.
is that because recently we could see the coral bleaching frequently, and that make a coral weak. So when coral is weak, then they release less.
Bleached coral, does that mean it's dead already, or
No.
is that
no?
it's still alive?
It's still alive. So it's just only have no color because of no zooxanthellae. But if the zooxanthellae, which is the single cell algae that
Interesting.
live together with the coral, but if the single cell algae, back inside the coral, then coral can
Interesting.
survive.
I didn't know that. So I always assumed that if the coral was bleached, it was already dead.
No.
But actually, it can continue to live like that for
For
some
maybe couple weeks. If in a couple weeks, the zooxanthellae come back, then they survive again. But if the zooxanthellae not come back, then they die.
That's really interesting. Coral requires these organisms to be a part of it, or else it doesn't function. Is that like the little
it's a
microorganisms in our own body?
It's a symbiosis.
Yeah.
So coral really need the zooxanthellae inside their body, and they will get the benefit, not just only the color, but all the energies. The food come from that zooxanthellae that photosynthesis and give the energy to the coral.
What do coral feed on?
Coral can get food two ways. The major one is from the zooxanthellae, and the other one, if they don't have a zooxanthellae, and if you look very closely, they would have a tentacle that can catch the plankton.
Okay.
So they can get the food two ways. But majority, 70%, they get the food from zooxanthellae.
Interesting. So they're kind of omnivores, sort of half plant, half animal in some senses.
Yeah, some kind of thing.
Let's rewind a little bit back to your Arctic expedition. Funnily enough, my sister went on an expedition to the Arctic 2 years ago with National Geographic as a part of a fellowship program. And I remember she was telling me that the waves were so big that she was brutally seasick for a week.
Yep.
And she had to take a whole bunch of pills. Was that your experience as well?
Yeah, actually, I did went to Arctic 3 times and Antarctic 3 times. And recently, I just got back from Antarctica. And yes, if you cruise on the big ship, icebreaker,
Yeah.
you will have to face the big wave. And several years ago, when I went there, use the icebreaker, it could, kind of moving maybe 30
degrees?
Yeah,
Oh,
right,
no.
right. And
Yeah,
we got
that's-
seasick for almost a week.
Okay, so she wasn't just complaining. she actually was proper sick.
Yeah.
30 degrees. So
30
that would be like all the furniture sliding back and forth if it isn't bolted down.
Oh, yeah, right. But what happened is that when we travel with the icebreaker, so they have to make sure that everything, fixed, because they know that for the icebreaker, it's go for, for Arctic or Antarctic expedition. So everything have to be in a proper.
What challenges, in addition to it just being really cold, did you experience between your Arctic trips and your trips, to the Andaman Sea?
The challenge is that if you go to Arctic or Antarctic, even though right now we have high technologies in terms of communication, but it's still very limited when you go to Arctic or Antarctic. So, but it depends on what year. Like the first year that I was there, I had to be there for 4 months. So it means that 4 months I could not really communicate back.
Oh, wow.
Yep,
Yeah, I guess there's no reception.
Yep. But Sinding are very, very weak. So, well, people always say that, well, we have to be a very, a physical, very strong. But then your mentality have to be very strong too. It means that you have to far apart from your family.
4 months is a very long time.
Yeah, really long
Yeah.
time.
You were diving almost every day, or?
Well, it depends on the expeditions. But usually if I have to dive, we try not to dive every day because it's too cold.
It's too cold. Yeah.
One day and then skip, and then the other day, something like that.
I'm half Canadian, so every once in a while I'll go back and visit my family, and I'll jump into some lake, and then I forget how nice and warm it is here in Thailand, because you can go into cold water and you can almost feel it like burning your skin.
Yeah.
But then I feel like there's like one level of cold that goes even beyond that, where I feel like my intestines get cold. I imagine the Arctic must be like that every time you get in the water.
Right. The Arctic and Antarctic, once you jump in, I would say that it's like you will got a feeling like an ice cream headache. Phew. And suddenly everything you get numb, your face get numb, and then you will not feel anything until 20 minutes later. Then you will feel it.
That does not sound pleasant.
But it's very nice though to see, the ecosystem there just totally different than what we see in Thailand.
Well, you mentioned that fish sometimes don't even swim, they just stay still. What are some other interesting things that you can spot when you're up in the Arctic?
Well, if related to the global warming and climate change now, unfortunately, we start to see some kind of disease or parasite that have been increased in the past 11 years. And this is kind of indicator that the ecosystem start to change due to the climate change, global warming. Because when we're talking about rising of the temperature, either air temperature or water temperatures, we're also talking about the new disease, right? And this already happened in Arctic and also in Antarctica.
And for the people watching who might want to get into scuba diving, what advice do you have for them as someone who's done 5,000-6,000 dives?
Well, I think scuba diving is one of the way that you can explore the ocean, and you can feel and you can see what the ocean like, and have changed or not. So it's very good if you have a chance to go into the water, either snorkeling, scuba diving. I would like to encourage you all. But one thing that I also would like you to share with you is that now the ocean is crying for help, because it has been some tremendous damage or change because of human activities. So it's time for us now to do something to save the oceans. It's not just only for only us, but to make sure that it will be able to be for the future for our next generation too.
Well, listen, thank you so much, Professor, for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And it's been so exciting and interesting for me to learn about this new research and to talk to somebody who's done so much diving as yourself. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
ขอบคุณครับ That's all for this episode of Thailand Today. I hope you learned something new. I definitely did. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Michael New. สวัสดีครับ